Welcome back to an episode of Message and Call. Today we're going to talk about how to do good estimates. First off, what is an estimate? So let's make sure we all understand what an estimate is. An estimate is not actuals. Estimate basically means that it is basically a number and there's a variance to the numbers that this number is. So assuming that if I estimate it to be 5 days, then I expect it to be really close to about 5 days, right? Estimates is plus or minus and it's not exactly 5. A good estimate is pretty much something that we can basically trust. There is some predictability to the numbers that's given to us. If we trust the numbers, that means based on a previous provided number, there is a sense that we are gonna meet the number that we provide. So on average, maybe if every 10 times that you give the number, you land around 8, and then sometimes it's 9, sometimes 10. So on average, you get more 8s, then you can safely say my estimate is about 8. So roughly about 8 estimates. So we know that estimates are not actuals. Okay, good. Now that we've said that, how do you get good estimates? Looking back at how I started my career as a software engineer, as a developer back in the mid-90s, one of the things that I started out to do was, managers asking me how long would it take for me to do something. As a developer, I would provide in terms of hours. It would take me a day, or 2, half days, and things like that. Now, oftentimes what I see is that when I am providing that estimate, usually what I really want to do is meet that estimate. If I say 5 hours or 2 days or things like that, I really want to complete that in between that time frame or less, right? We want to be known as a person that is reliable, trustworthy, and his words is gold, his word is bond, right? And it's something that I will definitely want to do. Now, as time progresses, as I become a manager, for example, now I'm estimating for a large group of teams. Now for a bigger project, not just things that I do that requires multiple people, now I'm going around and say, okay, what is the best way for me to do estimates? Well, if I do it individually, I ask the question individually and then add them up, and that will be a good estimate. Well, that's what I assume. I assume that if I were to do that, my estimates would be good. Now, of course, where this story is going. Surprise, surprise, the number isn't actually correct. Oftentimes, what I found as a manager was I'm having to play this, like the movie Office Space.
Hello, Peter. What's happening? I'm gonna need you to go ahead and come in tomorrow. So if you could be here around 9, that would be great.
And that doesn't really cut it. I feel really bad doing that, but I don't know how to get to good estimates. So my numbers was not trustworthy. I'm becoming a person that, yeah, they're always late. You've heard this phrase before. Oh, it's software engineers, they're always late. Developers, they're always late. They just play games all day long, and you get all these negative things about numbers that we provide. So how then do we get to good numbers? Now along my journey, I kept asking myself, what is my best way of providing estimates? When I was doing it on myself, right? When I was trying to figure out a number to provide my manager, and I asked around the senior developers and the managers back then, the answer that was given to me was always the same: experience. It will come with experience. Over time, you would know and you'll get better at it. Days, months, years, having spent that time, I still did not find a good way of providing what we call a good estimate. Oftentimes I'm either behind, or I have to make up. I put in a lot of hours in, sacrificing food, sleep and things like that. And I'm cramming everything into the time that I had to complete something just to meet, our original estimate. That sound familiar? Well, that happens to me too. But what is this experience that people keep talking about? Well, let's look into the days of, when there is no Google Maps, when there's no Apple Maps and things like that, when none of those stuff exists. How do I know how long it will take for me to drive from my house to work? Well, how do you know? Well, for me, it's real simple. I drive it one time. Now, based on that, it tells me, well, yesterday it took me 15 minutes to today, if I leave about the same time, it probably will take me 15 minutes too. So when you drive a lot in the same route, you tend to get a sense that, you know what, I've been driving on this for over a year now. I know the roads, I know the situation. You know, on average, it will take me about 15 minutes to get to work. Well, that's experience, right? So then how do we apply that to software development? How do we apply that to a team of people working together? So I did the same thing and says, well, okay, let me go ask each individual, right? And then for the ones that are new, right, junior developers, me as a senior person will probably estimate on their behalf. Now, again, I'll take those numbers up, add them up. Again, it doesn't work. Either we provide an estimate that's way too long, and even when I look at it, well, I don't think it will take that long, but my math seems right. My formulas, my Gantt chart, laying things out together, that seems right. And I'll start playing around with, multiple people doing the work, shifting people around, figuring out who's going to be doing what, trying to optimize the whole thing. And even then, my results is that, at the end of the day, we're either taking more time. I've had a project that I estimate to be 6 months. It took 2 years to do the work, even with people, even with a lot more people, and it didn't seem to get the good number. So how do we get to good numbers? So this is when I had an aha moment. Well, if it's based on experience, and if we look at how, the example that I provided, me driving to work, it took me multiple hours driving to work, and based on that, I'm collecting the data, and I'm doing an average on the data, and as I say, on average, it will take me X number of time. So why don't we measure the same thing? Why don't we measure the team, collectively as a team, instead of individual, since they're working together as one to deliver something? Let's measure them as a team. So let's put a time frame on. For example, in a week, how much work did they produce? Sounds simple, right? So one of the challenges is making sure that we're definitely producing a unit of output. So we gotta have a conversation about what that looks like. And we'll talk about it in my next video. For a good estimate, we need to measure, right, how much output does a team do. So let's measure that, let's count that, real simple. Count number of work that they produce week after week after week, right? So use that data, then based on that data, the more data we have, now we can play around with stats, right, with math. So on average, I can produce 5 things in a week. So if I have 100 things, guess what? 5 things a week, 100 things, that's 20 weeks. So easily I can say, this is what it looks like, because based on my data, now I can provide that information. Now, for me, when I did that, when I had the aha moment, when it kind of almost hit me in the face, it's like, wow, it's been there all along. That's exactly what everybody talk about, experience. Based on the team's experience, how much can they produce? So there you have it. The simplest way to getting estimates is actually not to estimates. It's actually to use actual data, historical data that the team has produced. You have to be patient, right? With more data, you get better at providing estimates. So the secret to estimates at the end of the day is experience and no estimates. Use actual historical data. Hope that helps some of you. If you've got any questions, post it down below. In my next video, we are going to talk about how do we now make sure that we're providing outputs that make sense. So it's a sneak peek, a little bit about it. It has to do with sizing. It has to do with automation. There you have it. All right, bye.